From the mysteries hidden within Mount Erebus to Brian's enigmatic Antarctic discovery, Antarctica is full of astonishing secrets. And in this video, we will explore 15 mysteries that showcase the surprising and often overlooked aspects of this icy continent. So sit back and enjoy. 15. Underground lakes. Antarctica is a frozen continent covered by a thick layer of ice that reaches up to 4 kilometers in some places. But what lies beneath this icy surface? You might be surprised to learn that there are hundreds of lakes hidden under the ice, some of them as large as the Caspian Sea. One of the first clues to the existence of these subglacial lakes came in 1970, when scientists used radars to map the ice sheet. They detected some areas where the ice was thinner, indicating the presence of liquid water below. Since then, more than 400 lakes have been identified, mostly in East Antarctica, where the ice is thicker and older. The origin of these lakes is still a matter of debate, but one theory is that they were formed after Antarctica broke away from Gondwanaland, the ancient supercontinent, about 200 million years ago. The continental drift created rifts and valleys in the bedrock, which were filled with water from melting glaciers and rain. Over time, the water was trapped under the ice sheet, which acted as a natural insulator, preventing it from freezing. One of the most famous and mysterious of these lakes is Lake Vostok, which was discovered in the 1990s by Russian scientists. Lake Vostok is the largest subglacial lake in Antarctica and the third largest lake by volume in the world. It lies 3.5 kilometers below the ice and covers an area of 15,690 square kilometers, about the size of Lake Ontario. The water in Lake Vostok is estimated to be around -3 degrees Celsius, but it remains liquid due to the immense pressure from the ice above. 14. The Fiery Volcano. When you think of Antarctica, you probably imagine a frozen and barren land where nothing can survive. But did you know that there is a volcano in Antarctica that is constantly erupting and even harbors life? This is Mount Erebus, the most active and mysterious volcano on the continent. Mount Erebus is one of the 4 volcanoes on Ross Island, and the only one that is still active. It has been erupting continuously since 1972, producing lava bombs, ash plumes, and steam clouds. It is also the world's southernmost active volcano, and Antarctica's second highest volcano, reaching 3,794 meters above sea level. But what makes Mount Erebus unique is its lava lake, which is one of the few permanent lava lakes in the world. The lava lake is a pool of molten rock that is constantly boiling and bubbling, creating spectacular explosions and sounds. The lava lake is about 250 meters wide and lies inside the main crater of the volcano. How does the lava lake stay liquid in such a cold environment? The answer is the immense pressure from the weight of the volcano, which prevents the lava from solidifying. The lava lake is also fed by a magma chamber that lies about 30 kilometers below the surface, which supplies fresh and hot magma to the lake. But the most surprising thing about Mount Erebus is that it is not a lifeless place. In fact, scientists have discovered several forms of life that thrive in the heat of the volcano. 13. Lost mountains. Imagine a mountain range as big as the Alps, but buried under a thick layer of ice. This is not a fantasy, but a reality in Antarctica, where the Gamburtsev mountain range lies hidden and mysterious. The Gamburtsev mountain range was discovered in 1958 by Russian scientists who named it after Soviet geophysicist Grigory A. Gamburtsev. They were exploring the Antarctic ice sheet when they noticed some areas where the ice was thinner and the gravity was stronger. These anomalies indicated the presence of a massive mountain range under the ice, stretching for 1,200 kilometers and rising to 3,000 meters. Since then, scientists have used radars, seismometers, and magnetometers to study the shape and structure of the mountains without actually seeing them. They found that the mountains have sharp peaks, deep valleys, and ancient glaciers resembling a young mountain range. However, they also found that the mountains are very old, dating back to 1 billion years ago. But how did these mountains form? And why are they still there? Normally, mountains erode over time due to wind, water, and ice. But the Gamburtsev Mountains seem to defy this process and remain intact under the ice. There are several theories to explain this paradox, but none of them are conclusive. 12. The Salty Lake. Antarctica is known for its ice and snow, but did you know that it also has a lake that is so salty that it never freezes? This is Deep Lake, a unique and extreme environment that hosts some of the most resilient life forms on Earth. Deep Lake is an inland lake that lies in the Vestfold Hills, a region of East Antarctica. The lake is 55 meters below sea level and has a surface area of 4.5 square kilometers. The lake is divided into 4 basins, each with a different depth and salinity. The deepest basin is 36 meters deep and has a salinity of 270 parts per thousand, which is 10 times saltier than the ocean. The shallowest basin is 18 meters deep and has a salinity of 50 parts per thousand, which is still twice as salty as the ocean. But how did Deep Lake become so salty? The answer is evaporation. Deep Lake is part of a chain of lakes that are connected by streams. The water in the lakes comes from melting glaciers and snow. However, the water in Deep Lake does not flow out, but stays in the lake. As the water evaporates, the salt remains, increasing the salinity of the lake. The cold and dry climate of Antarctica prevents the water from freezing, even at temperatures as low as -20 degrees Celsius. 11. Blood flow. Antarctica is a land of ice and snow, but there is one place where a red liquid flows. This is blood falls, a strange and striking phenomenon that has puzzled scientists for decades. What is the origin of this bloody waterfall, and what does it reveal about the hidden secrets of Antarctica? Blood Falls is a 5-story high waterfall that emerges from the Taylor Glacier into Lake Bonny in the McMurdo Dry Valley. The waterfall has a bright crimson color that contrasts with the white and blue surroundings. It looks like a gush of blood from a wound in the ice, but it is actually a very salty and iron-rich water. But where does this water come from, and why is it so salty and red? The answer lies in the ancient history of Antarctica. The water that feeds Blood Falls was once part of a salty lake that existed about 5 million years ago when the climate was warmer and wetter. The lake was isolated from the atmosphere by the formation of the glaciers on top of it, creating a subglacial reservoir. The water in the reservoir became even saltier over time as it dissolved the minerals from the bedrock. The water also became rich in iron as it interacted with the iron-bearing rocks. The water remained liquid despite the freezing temperatures because of the high salinity and the pressure from the ice above. 10. The mysterious hole. Antarctica is a continent of ice, but sometimes a hole appears in the ice, revealing the dark water below. This is not a sign of global warming, but a natural phenomenon that has puzzled scientists for decades. What is the cause and the effect of this giant hole in Antarctica? The hole is called a polynya, which is a Russian word for an open water area surrounded by ice. Polynyas can occur in different parts of the world, but the most famous and largest one is in the Weddell Sea of the Southern Ocean, near Antarctica. The Weddell polynya was first observed in the 1970s, when it reached a size of 250,000 square kilometers, about the size of New Zealand. Then, it disappeared for 40 years, until it reappeared in 2017, with a size of 78,000 square kilometers, about the size of Ireland. But how does a polynya form, and why does it vary in size and frequency? The answer is related to the ocean circulation and the temperature and salinity of the water. The water in the Weddell Sea is stratified, meaning that there are layers of water with different characteristics. The surface layer is cold and fresh because it is influenced by the melting ice and the precipitation. The deeper layer is warm and salty because it comes from the north, where the water is heated by the sun and evaporated by the wind. The warm and salty water is denser than the cold and fresh water, so it sinks to the bottom of the sea. However, sometimes the warm water is pushed up by the ocean currents and reaches the surface, where it melts the ice. As the warm water mixes with the cold water, it cools down and becomes denser and sinks again. This creates a cycle of convection, where the water is constantly moving up and down, creating a hole in the ice. 9. Weird and wonderful wildlife. Antarctica is a land of ice and snow, where the average temperature is -49 degrees Celsius, and the wind can reach 320 kilometers per hour. It seems like a place where nothing can live, except for some penguins and seals. But beneath the frozen surface, there is a hidden world of amazing and bizarre creatures that have adapted to the extreme conditions. How do they survive, and what do they look like? One of the most surprising discoveries in Antarctica was the existence of life under the ice sheets, which cover 99% of the continent. Scientists have found that there are lakes and rivers under the ice, where microbes, crustaceans, and even fish live. These organisms have developed special features, such as anti-freeze proteins, that prevent them from freezing. They also use the chemicals from the rocks and the ice as energy sources and form complex food webs. But the most astonishing creatures in Antarctica are the ones that live in the open water, where the temperature is around -2 degrees Celsius. These creatures have evolved to cope with the cold, the dark, and the lack of oxygen. 8. Ancient fossils and rainforests. Antarctica is the coldest, driest, and windiest continent on Earth, where life is scarce and ice covers almost everything. But this was not always the case. Millions of years ago, Antarctica was a warm and green land, with rainforests and diverse wildlife. How do we know this? And what happened to this ancient paradise? The evidence for the past climate and life of Antarctica comes from the fossils that have been found on the continent. Fossils are the preserved remains or impressions of organisms that lived in the past. Scientists have found fossils of wood, leaves, pollen, and seeds that show that Antarctica once had tropical and temperate forests similar to those in Australia and South America. These fossils date back to the Jurassic and Cretaceous periods between 265 million years ago, when Antarctica was part of a supercontinent called Gondwana and had a warmer and wetter climate. Scientists have found fossils of animals that lived in Antarctica, both on land and in the sea. Some of the most remarkable fossils are those of dinosaurs, such as the Antarctopelta, a plant-eating armored dinosaur, and the Cryolophosaurus, a meat-eating crested dinosaur. These dinosaurs lived about 190 million years ago and were adapted to the seasonal changes in light and temperature. Scientists have also found fossils of marine reptiles, such as the plesiosaurs and the mosasaurs, that swam in the Antarctic waters. These reptiles were huge and powerful predators that fed on fish, squid, and other animals. Scientists have also found fossils of birds, such as the Archaeopteryx, the oldest known bird, and the Vagavis, an ancestor of ducks and geese. 7. Brian's Antarctic discovery. Brian, a former naval officer and flight engineer, discovered a massive circular hole carved into the Antarctic ice sheet during a resupply flight out of McMurdo Station. This discovery was significant because it hinted at something unusual or potentially secretive happening beneath the surface of Antarctica. However, when Brian attempted to investigate further, he encountered strange occurrences. All the gadgets in his aircraft went haywire when they approached the hole, requiring an emergency restart. This experience raised suspicions and attracted attention from authorities. After Brian reported the strange phenomena he witnessed, men in black suits, along with high-ranking naval commanders, arrived at McMurdo Station. They ordered Brian to retract his report about the bizarre aircraft and incidents he witnessed in Antarctica. When Brian refused, he faced threats of serious consequences. Despite his attempts to report his findings, Brian found himself being grilled by a panel of individuals from DARPA, a secretive agency within the U.S. Department of Defense. They warned him to keep silent about the strange sightings and occurrences in Antarctica. 6. Singing ice. Antarctica is a land of silence and solitude, where the only sounds are the wind and the cracking of the ice. But there is one place where the ice makes a different kind of noise, a haunting and beautiful melody that can be heard by special instruments. This is the Ross Ice Shelf, the largest and most mysterious ice shelf in Antarctica. An ice shelf is a thick layer of ice that floats on the sea but is attached to the land. The Ross Ice Shelf is the size of France and is several hundred meters thick. It is a vital part of the Antarctic ecosystem as it regulates the flow of glaciers and the temperature of the ocean. But why does the ice shelf sing, and what does it mean? The answer is that the singing ice is a sign of the ice shelf's health and stability. The vibrations reflect the changes in the ice, such as melting, cracking, or shifting. By listening to the ice, scientists can monitor the ice shelf in real time and track its response to climate change. The ice shelf is under threat from the warming of the ocean and the atmosphere, which could cause it to collapse and raise the sea level. 5. The fifth ocean. You may have learned that there are 4 oceans in the world: the Pacific, the Atlantic, the Indian, and the Arctic. But did you know that there is a 5th ocean that was officially recognized in 2000? This is the Southern Ocean, the youngest and most mysterious ocean in the world. The Southern Ocean is the ocean that surrounds the entire continent of Antarctica. It is the 4th largest ocean in the world, covering an area of 20.3 million square kilometers, which is nearly twice the size of the United States. It is also the deepest ocean in the world, with an average depth of 4,000 meters and a maximum depth of 7,235 meters. But what makes the Southern Ocean unique is its role in the global ocean circulation and the climate system. The Southern Ocean is the only ocean that connects all the other oceans, creating a continuous loop of water flow. The water in the Southern Ocean is driven by strong winds that create powerful currents, such as the Antarctic Circumpolar Current, the largest current in the world. These currents transport heat, salt, nutrients, and carbon dioxide around the globe, affecting the weather and marine life. 4. McMurdo Dry valleys. In a small part of the continent, there is a different landscape where ice and sand coexist. This is the McMurdo Dry Valleys, the largest ice-free area in Antarctica. The McMurdo Dry Valleys are a series of valleys that lie in the Transantarctic Mountains near the Ross Sea. They cover an area of 4,800 square kilometers, which is about 0.03% of the Antarctic landmass. The valleys are named after the McMurdo Sound, which is the southernmost point of the Ross Sea. The valleys are dry because they are blocked by the mountains from the moist air that comes from the sea. The valleys are also cold because they are located in the polar plateau where the altitude is high. 3. The fungi of the frozen land. In the cracks and crevices of the ice, there is a hidden world of microorganisms that have adapted to the extreme conditions. Among them, there are some remarkable fungi that have some surprising abilities and potential uses. Fungi are a group of organisms that include mushrooms, molds, and yeasts. They are neither plants nor animals, but have their own kingdom. They feed on organic matter and decompose it into simpler substances. They also reproduce by spores, which are tiny cells that can survive harsh environments. One of the most interesting fungi in Antarctica is the Cryomyces antarcticus, which is endemic to the continent, meaning that it is found only there and nowhere else in the world. This fungus lives on the wooden huts that were left by the first explorers of Antarctica, such as Robert Scott and Ernest Shackleton. The fungus survives the freezing temperatures by producing a special pigment that protects it from the UV radiation and the oxidative stress. The fungus also produces enzymes that help it break down the wood and use it as food. 2. Cosmic treasures of Antarctica. In the cracks and crevices of the ice, there are hidden treasures that come from outer space. These are the meteorites, the fragments of rocks and metals that fall from the sky. Meteorites can fall anywhere on Earth, but they are easier to find in Antarctica for several reasons. First, the cold and dry conditions of Antarctica preserve the meteorites and prevent them from weathering and eroding. Second, the dark color of the meteorites contrasts with the white color of the ice, making them more visible. Third, the ice sheets of Antarctica are mostly free of native rocks, so the meteorites are almost always extraterrestrial. Scientists have been collecting meteorites in Antarctica since 1976 and have found more than 20,000 samples, representing about 2/3 of all the meteorites found on Earth. Some of the meteorites are very rare and valuable as they contain clues to the origin and evolution of the solar system. 1. Secrets and Conspiracies of Antarctica. Behind the frozen facade, there are many secrets and conspiracies that have intrigued and fascinated people for years. But what are some of the most popular and controversial theories about Antarctica? One of the most common theories is that Antarctica is a home to aliens, or even a portal to another dimension. Many people believe that Antarctica once had a warm and lush climate and that it was inhabited by an advanced civilization that had contact with extraterrestrials. Some of the evidence for this theory are the elongated skulls, the strange pyramids, and the bizarre structures that have been found or seen on the continent. Some people also claim that they have seen UFOs or unidentified flying objects in the sky above Antarctica or on Google Earth images. Some people think that the aliens are still living in Antarctica in hidden bases or underground tunnels. Another theory is that Antarctica is the location of the lost city of Atlantis, the mythical island that was described by Plato and that sank into the ocean. Some people think that Atlantis was a part of Antarctica and that it was buried under the ice after a cataclysmic event. Some of the evidence for this theory are the ancient maps that show Antarctica without ice and the similarities between the cultures of Atlantis and South America. Some people also think that Atlantis was a source of powerful energy and that it had a connection to the pyramids of Egypt and other ancient monuments. Now, what do you think about these remarkable Antarctic mysteries? From the hidden fungi thriving in the icy cracks to the vast underground lakes silently flowing beneath the surface, Antarctica continues to amaze and intrigue us with its secrets. Let us know your thoughts in the comments section below.